Hello, I'm the Renegade Gamer, and today we're going to discuss Final Fantasy 13-2. Uh, um, this game is a sequel to Final Fantasy 13, a very controversial game. It's interesting that they decided to make this game in the first place, considering that while 13 did sell very well and was praised by many of the critics, fan base was mixed. So it's kind of strange that this one had a sequel. That being said, Square addressed a lot of the issues that people had with the first game. It's no longer a linear corridor fest. There are side quests. There are NPCs you can talk to. The story is actually not as convoluted. Well, it is convoluted, but actually, it's not that hard to follow if you really sit there and you watch it. Um, see what else for Central Place. There are mini games, and combat in general has been improved quite a bit. So let's discuss some of these things. First thing I want to discuss is mini games. Um, Now, in the base game, you basically had poker. Or, sorry, no, you didn't have poker. You had slots, and you had the chocobo racing. The slot machine thing was made a little bit too complicated, and even though you had a choice over the rules, it, it didn't really work well. They kind of screwed it up, is my point. Chocobo racing should have been awesome, but it was outright boring. And I hate to say that about any chocobo racing part of any Final Fantasy, but it was boring. Um, but then we had the DLC from Zaz's Heads or Tails, which added poker and my favorite, Clock Out. I had a lot of fun with Clock Out. I thought it was a pretty fun little mini game, but it was a little complicated at first. But once you got the hang of it, it was actually pretty fun. And then poker, well, it was Texas Hold'em, and the AI was idiots, and so it wasn't that hard to beat. But overall, it was kind of fun. I enjoyed it quite a bit. But I do think it was a mistake to make that a DLC. I think it should have been incorporated into the game, the base game to begin with. Which brings us to a lot of the DLC. Um, the lightning thing shouldn't have been really DLC. The game starts opening with lightning. Why not end the game with lightning? You get the full coverage. But that being said, both DLCs were fun to mess around with. And then you have the Coliseum, which is the other part of the minigame aspect of this. And I think it was a bad move not to have the Coliseum in the base game. Even though it is, you actually can't do anything until you download all the Coliseum stuff. The fights themselves, they were fun, but I'll put it to you this way. When I was playing through the fights, I used the Sentinel and Ravager and a Commando, and I really was in no harm's way of dying. But the way they had it set up was that with quite a few of the fights, the ones that come immediately to mind was Gilgamesh and Jill Nabat. Excuse me. Um, they would gain so much health back after you staggered them. You were back at square one. So you had to go and basically use a Saboteur to wound them a lot so that they wouldn't be able to do that. My point is, it was a little bit too specific about what you had to do. That being said, they were still fun. combat. So one of the biggest problems in the first game was the fact that if your party leader died, the game was over. They fixed that in this one. Basically, if your party leader dies, it just swaps over to the other human character. So if Sarah dies, it goes to Noel. If Noel dies, it goes to Sarah. Good move. I like that. And of course, they also fixed the Crystalium quite a bit. They dumbed it down a little bit. Basically, not having to have a cap anymore to the story. Basically, if you want and you get the time, you can level Commando all the way up to 99 within the first few chapters. You don't have to spend on anything else. I don't recommend that, but it's on the table. But so that was fun. I actually liked that. I felt like I was progressively getting stronger through the entirety of the game. I never really felt extraordinarily weak. For the most part, they fixed the weapon thing too. One of my biggest complaints from the first game. Basically, you could buy weapons, and all you needed was a few components, but it told you what components you need to get the weapons. That's all I asked. So, I like that. The other thing is the, and of course, the final thing. Okay, I want to say this ahead of time. I'm not a Pokemon fan. You can burn me at the stake for that. I'm not a Pokemon fan. I have nothing against the games. I just have never been able to get into them. That being said, I enjoyed the monster capturing thing in this game. I enjoyed going out and trying to capture as many monsters as I could to use them on my team and experiment with. That was a lot of fun. The huge amount of selection that you had at your fingertips was a lot, and it was quite a bit of fun. I enjoyed it. So that was great. The exploration of the game was pretty cool. I enjoyed exploring all the maps they gave you, even though technically speaking, it's the same maps that you are given throughout all the time periods. It was still a lot of fun to explore them nonetheless, and there were some differences between each map. Fragments. Fragments were tied into the side quest, and some of them were fun to get, but eventually they got very tedious to get. It's like, all right, I gotta find this one. I got it. The one that come to mind immediately that were most tedious was the Captain Quiz guy that was showing up all around the future Arcadia 400, a alternate 400 Arcadia. It was annoying because basically if you answered something wrong, he'd disappear in another area. You had to go hunt him down. Some of them was okay, some of them just didn't work that well. But, you know, riding chocobos was fun. I don't know what the deal is with the red chocobo or the music that they attached to it, but whatever. Actually, I do know what some of the deal is. It's because the timeline's changing and everything. It somehow they're screwed up with the chocobo, but that's not the point. So let's talk about some problems before I get into the story. Let's just talk about some problems before we really dive into it. And some of these problems are dealing with the story itself. First off, at the end of the game, I was still left with a few questions that were not answered. And the main one was Snow. In the game, it showed that Snow now has the Lassie brand again, which he lost in 13 when Ragnarok did his deal and all this mess. Etro healed everybody and basically made him not Lassie anymore. So he has the Lassie brand. And I kept waiting. I was like, okay, where's the explanation for this? It's not in the game. I had to get online and look up a Wikipedia to figure out how the hell he got his Lassie brand. That's a pretty big question to leave unanswered in a game. It was in a book that was only released in Japan. My point is, once again, like I said in my Final Fantasy 15 video, things that are, if you address something, if you make it apparent that something is here and you don't provide the answer to it, that's a problem, because all you're doing is frustrating the player with questions. The splitting up into multimedia shit, it doesn't work. um, y'all really need, if you plan on elaborating on that, that's fine, but make the fucking game first. I'm getting really annoyed with Square because of this shit. So that was one of the big issues, is that there was some questions there I didn't have. There was also stuff with Caius that I didn't know, and I had to go online and look it up. There was also a book about him. What the hell? That being said, this game handles its lore a lot better than 13 did. It's woven into the plot quite a bit easier. I understood who Etra was. I understood what was going on. I understood that if Etra died, time would be destroyed and the chaos would be released. If I understood that Caius had Etra's heart. If he died, time would be destroyed because Etra would die, and the whole thing would be released. I understood where Caius was coming from. I understood all the plights in the game. So very well done with the storytelling part. Now, the presentation of the story, it's okay. It's not terrible. It's easier to follow, and but there were some things here I felt was wrong. One last problem before we get into it, and this deals with the ending. I have to talk about this. I just have to. So, spoilers. If you plan on killing your main protagonist in the game, okay, that's fine. Now, it was set up. There was a setup there. I understood that the more timelines that Sarah saw, the shorter her lifespan would get. Okay, that makes sense. And so she dies. Okay, the scene looks great. Noel's got her in her arm. It's a really heartbreaking scene that's completely ruined because it has this really upbeat J-pop music going on. Now, I'm nothing against Japanese J-pop. I don't. In fact, I like quite a bit of it. But for that scene, that song should not have been playing. It should have been a very mellow, sad, or some other song. It should have been very kind of depressing. It just ruined the entire ending that they went with. I don't know what they were thinking. I don't know what the director was thinking. It was honestly one of the worst directed scenes I've seen, just because of that one issue. So yeah. So I beat 13-2 about 4 days ago, by making this video anyway. And I didn't make a review right off the bat or a discussion on it, because basically I wanted to get my thoughts together on this game. I'm going to say this right now. I really liked this game. I did. But it feels like a lot of heart is not there. It tries to be, but the heart it's just it kind of feels hollow. I guess is the point I'm making. Um, and from what I read from the directors, they were trying to make it more with a beating with a lot more emotion. And it's kind of sad because I think they kind of failed on it. That doesn't mean I didn't feel sad when Sarah died. It's just one of those things that I was sitting there. I was like, okay. What I mean by that is that you have four characters really that are expanded on in this game. We have Sarah, Noel, Caius, and Yule to a degree. And while time is spent on each one of them, it feels like it feels kind of like a running train. This is a really bad analogy, but it feels like a running train that's going down the road, and you're kind of catching just bits and pieces of it that's going on. You get the full picture, but at the same time, I mean, you get the full picture of their arcs, but it feels disjointed. I guess is the way I'm thinking here, and I think it's just because of the structure of the story, the way it's told through all the multiple timelines. But I don't know. I do plan on playing this game again. I did enjoy it. It's just very weird the way that it's set up. Also, I have to admit freely that the idea of time jumping all over the place is not a bad idea, but your explanation sucks. um, what I mean by that is that by changing the future, you change the past. Okay, we find out what that actually means. It's basically Yule, every time the future changes, she sees a different future. It changes her past because basically her life gets shorter. Okay, I understand that. But you change the future, it'll change some event in the past. It goes back to the whole ripple type theory that I've heard before, where basically if you drop a coin into like water, it ripples out. It's the same thing in time, which is one of the dumbest theories I've ever heard in my life. It makes no sense. I mean, the grandfather paradox, I understand that. There's a lot of paradoxes I do understand and I can get behind. But the ripple theory, where you literally, if you change this thing that happens in the future, it changes this thing in the past. No, it doesn't make logical sense. But hence the paradox that exists, I guess. But anyway, so I did like the game. Don't get me wrong. The music in the game I thought was done pretty well. There's only a few tracks I really didn't like that much. I really enjoyed the track Paradox. Some of the lyrical tracks I really enjoyed quite a bit. The one that was playing in Bodom comes to mind. The game itself I thought was it had some pretty good challenges here and there. But with all the endings it had and everything, I only really saw two that were not just outright depressing. The first one that was a paradox ending was the joke ending, Mog's story time ending, where basically he changes Sarah and Noel into fawns, and they plan on poisoning his royal rightness. It was funny. I found it funny. And then the Sarah Snow ending, where they go off into the time stream and to stop Caius. It was a good ending. But the rest of them were just really kind of depressing to watch. It was just no, these are not that good. But yeah, I mean, I think the game has gotten the hell beat out of it by a lot of people And honestly, I think it's because they just still have a grudge against 13. They're not really looking at the game on itself, on its own merits. And on its own merits, 13-2 is actually pretty good. The story's easier to follow. The characters are more likable. Um, the combat's better. And I may get some flack for this. I actually like the music more than I did 13. But I don't know. They had some pretty good dungeon designs. The open worldness of it, that a lot of things go on. Um, the freedom that you had to go move anywhere you wanted. It wasn't just a linear corridor anymore. It's not a bad game. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Um, so I don't know, but I do know that um, a lot of people didn't like this particular game. I've heard it called garbage. I've heard a lot of people say it was worse than 13. And I disagree. I think it's actually a better game than 13. If nothing else, just because of the gameplay. But it's one I will play again. If I was doing the ranking list, I know I said to think 13 would be somewhere in the middle. I think I'd actually put 13-2 ahead of it. Um, I really liked it. I thought it was fun. Um, but that's just me. As for so I guess that's my discussion on the game. So what I'm doing right now is I'm going through Tales of Mysteria, and I'm also playing Final Fantasy 12 Zodiac Age, as well as once I get back in my truck, because right now I'm in a hotel room. My truck's broke down. Once I'm able to get back in my truck, I plan to start playing Lightning Returns. If you're curious, yes, I am going backwards with the Final Fantasies. Um, some of these games I haven't played in a very long time, and a few of them I have never played. Lightning Returns is a game that I have played up to a point, and I got frustrated and quit. I plan on finishing it this time because I do enjoy that game. It's just I get frustrated with the whole Majora's Mask thing. But Tales of Mysteria, I'm about halfway through that game, and Final Fantasy 12 Zodiac Age, I'm also almost halfway through that game. So the next review will probably be one of those three. Also possibly Tomb Raider, because I was going through some of that. So I got 4 more video game reviews coming up at least. I may do a few movie reviews here and there. If I discover anything on the Final Fantasy VII Remake, I'll definitely make a video on that. I haven't really seen any concrete news, so we'll see. Anyway, I'm the Renegade. I completely lost my train of thought. I'm the Renegade. I appreciate your time. You take it easy, and I'll catch you in the next episode.